Welcome back to another video, guys. I'm Joe Yates, and in this episode we are going to be fitting a brand new spanking new fuel rail with injectors. I've got these Bosch babies here. They're going to be going in, all part of the upgrade, the power upgrade. If you haven't seen the latest video, check them out. We've got the whole stage of the power upgrade there. Turbo install. It was a previous video. Now we're on to upgrading the injectors for 1000cc Bosch injectors, EV14s. So this fuel rail is an EFI Solutions fuel rail. I'll show you guys now the whole kit and what it comes with. So this is an EFI Solutions kit. It is full bolt-on, so nothing requires modification. Really, this is going to be an easy install, I hope. So excited to get this fuel rail installed. The full kit comes with everything you need, all the spacers, the bolts, the O-rings, and the connectors. Plus it even comes with a new genuine Nissan gasket as well. Really well priced bit of kit. So we're going to get to work and fit this up, and another piece of the puzzle for the tune will be finished. Just an update on how we're doing. The turbo is finally installed. So happy about that. We are one step closer. The hot side is complete along with the intake. We're just about ready to party. No, not really. We still have the injectors and fuel rail to upgrade, as well as the fuel reg and the fuel lines. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get to work and I'm going to remove the manifold, and then we're going to pick it up when the manifold's removed, and I'll show you guys the actual installation of the injectors. I think that's going to be the most exciting part. Otherwise, if you want few little tips, it's pretty easy enough. There's a whole bunch of connectors, IACV valve. Got to remove this intercooler pipe. There's some bracketry down there, which is attached to the manifold. We're just taking the top section of the manifold off. We have to disconnect the throttle body, disconnect these lines, the vac lines. We're going to have to remove this fuel reg, and we're going to be upgrading that anyway for a nice turbo smart item. Yeah guys, so look, I'm going to get to work because this is going to take me a while, and we're going to get to the exciting part of fitting the brand new injectors and fuel rail. Stick around. Just an update, guys. So intake manifold, the top section anyway, is just about ready to be removed. We've got pretty much everything else disconnected around it, including the wiring harness. You need to remove that. Just put it to one side. You can see where the CAS has been disconnected, crank angle sensor. And I'm just starting with the injectors, the injector loom there, but I think I'll be able to get to the other two plugs once I've removed this top half. So just a matter of the bolts down there. There's not that many of them. We are just about there. I've got all the plugs disconnected, PCV hose disconnected, throttle cable. You can see the harness there. I've just put it under the wiper blade. All the back line, it's just all tucked there, all out of the way, so that we can just remove it. Okay guys, who's excited? I'm excited. Let's remove this manifold. That wasn't that hard after all, was it? There we go guys, so we got the manifold removed. It was pretty easy to remove, just the top section. Now we can get to all those injectors. So we'll just put this to the side and let's take a look. Okay, so just taking a look, we've removed that top half of the manifold now, and you can see a couple of injector plugs still connected. I managed to disconnect two of them but couldn't quite get to the other two. That's just because the manifold was in the way. You see the nice manifold gasket. We could probably reuse that, but we are not going to. We've got a nice freshie to go on. We've got a nice fresh manifold gasket to go on. Next step is to remove the rail completely with injectors. And this is where the fun part almost begins, where we fit the new injectors. So new injectors. So we're going to actually have to fit new plugs for the injectors, because the injectors are different plugs. They're not the Nissan type. Alright, we've now got the fuel injector harness all disconnected, and I've just cleaned the face of the manifold up, just ready for that new gasket. We still have to de-pin the harness here. We still have to swap over the plugs to the Bosch style, And yeah guys, we're getting there. 3 bolts now just to remove the rail, and those injectors along with the rail should all come out nicely together. Just to show you guys how clean this motor was when I got it, check out the zinc plating on the fuel rail. That's how fresh this motor was when I got it. I got an absolute steal, just a bargain find, hey. Date stamps on the motor are for 2011, and this zinc plated fuel rail really shows how clean the motor actually was. Okay, we're just looking at de-pinning these connectors now and swapping the connectors over. I'll just give you a heads up guys, the red and black wire is the actual supply, the power supply. The other wire is basically the earth trigger from the ECU. So all of the other plugs will have the red and black wire, the red and black wire being the power supply on one of the pins, just 2 pins per plug. So just got the wiring diagram up here, you can see number 2. Okay, so you can see the red and black wire, that's actually pin 2. That's the power supply wire going to the injector, and the other wire will be color coded to match like each cylinder. Each cylinder will have a different color code. That's pin number 1. That's actually the ECU, the engine ECU earth trigger to fire. Anyway, we're going to swap that over and fit the new connector now. Alright guys, just to show you how to remove one of these, basically the locking piece for the connector on the S15s. Really easy, just get a little flat blade screwdriver, and you pretty much want to carefully push it in here in this little hole. You want to push it in with your screwdriver, bend the tab slightly, and then just lever it out. And there you go. I just lost it. Now it's just a matter of getting your little screwdriver in. You just want to bend the plastic tab up slightly. Same on the other side, and I'm just pulling the wires at the same time. And there we go. Just like that. Not too bad. Pretty easy. Just careful with the little tabs. So I just deepened all the connectors because I wanted to save the actual terminals and also save the connectors just in case. But you know, if you're doing this, you can just chop them. It's no trouble at all if you just want to just chop them, and then you can just fit the new ones. Just want to show you the difference of the actual EV14. You can see it's actually got 7 holes for the spray pattern as compared to the standard SR20 S15 injector. You'll see it only has 4. You see the standard injector only has 4 holes, so remarkably quite different. You're going to have a lot more fuel coming out of these bad boys in terms of spray pattern. Yeah guys, so we're going to be getting the fuel that we need, especially running E85. Definitely, like, you want to at least double your injector size. Okay, first up we have these little adapters that we want to fit to the manifold. They sit in, so we've got these O-rings here. We want to lubricate with engine oil. So you just want to get a little bit of engine oil all around the ring, the O-ring, and just slip that on. So these are the injector adapters. Yeah, you don't need a lot, just a thin sort of coat all around the O-ring. Now they can be fitted to the intake manifold. Okay, this is the first one we're going to fit, and it's coated in oil, the O-ring is, and these are just the adapters basically for the injectors. Just want to pop that in like so. That's for all 4. And now we're just going to set the fuel rail up with the AN fittings, the AN6. They got -6 fittings. They're like this, right? They come with an O-ring, and basically you just stretch that over and So what we're going to use is some Teflon tape. Just going to use some Teflon tape on the threads, just about one layer. So that's prepped now. I'm just going to put the O-ring on with a little bit of silicone spray on the O-ring. I'm just going to slip it over. A little bit of silicone spray on there. The O-ring acts as the seal, not the actual thread of the fitting. It's all in the O-ring. Do it up by hand, and then I'll just tighten it, just a little bit of a tighten. So it doesn't need much. So this is a 22mm size spanner. I'll just give it a little tighten once the fill rail, once it's in place, I'll give it a little extra. But that should be enough. I'm not actually going to be using these ports. There's one there. There's also one on the bottom. I'm not going to be using those, so they do come with the blanking plugs. We're going to blank off those as we don't need them with these. Just the same again with the AN fittings, the same procedure. Just a little bit of Teflon tape, and I just used a little bit of silicone spray on the O-ring. Okay, so what we have here is the injector harness, and what I wanted to show you guys was basically how to swap the connectors out. Just show you how I did it anyway. I've done 3 out of the 4 and I've just saved the last one. So these are the old pins. We're going to cut them off. We don't need them anymore. I'm just going to have to peel back and cut just a little bit of the wire sheath. Now we want to just trim a little off each wire. Get my side cutters here. Carefully remove a bit of the insulator from the wire. Then you just want to get your little seals, your connector seals, and slide them on as well. Yeah, don't forget to put the water seals for the connector on. Slip them over first before you go putting the terminal on, because if you put terminal on first, then you find out the hard way. So here's the crimp terminal, guys. I'm just going to squeeze it a little bit with my terminal pliers here, just the ends, so that it fits into the tool nicely. Put the seal for the connector on first over the wire. If you forget that, then you'll end up crimping the terminal and realizing soon after. What I like to do is I like to get the terminal in the tool and just get it squeezed slightly, and then I'll come along with the wire and slide it in there and carefully crimp it when it's in position. So guys, if you had success with your crimp terminal tool, it would look something like this. If you get it all right, depending on the quality of your tool. I was just using a cheap tool, so it was a little bit hit and miss, but at the end of the day, it crimps it down nice and tightly. It's not going to move. Do the pull test. It's fine. Good to go. So on the Bosch connectors, they actually are labelled 1 and 2 for the pins. So just based off the old S15 connectors, I'm going to keep it the same. With injectors, it doesn't matter which way you put each pin in, whether it be the power or the earth trigger, it doesn't matter. But I want to keep it uniform, so we're going to just go with like the S15 standard sort of wiring, which was pretty much the red and black wire was pin number 2, and on the Bosch style it actually has number 2 and number 1 written on the connector, which is handy. So we're just going to go for the standard. So now the easy part, just slide her in, and at the same time I like to try to push that seal in. This tool here is a special D-pin tool. I use that to push the terminal and wire out when I realise that I've not pushed the seal in properly and I needed to. Little flat blade screwdriver does come in handy. And then this is the tool I was using to crimp the actual terminals. You can get these in various qualities. This is just a cheapie. You do get what you pay for. Just a wire stripper tool and side cutters, stripping back the wires. And these are a proper stripper as well for the wiring. Okay, here we have the injector harness. It's all been converted over to the Bosch style. So we're we're good to go now. I may just wrap the wires here, just see how the ends are sort of exposed a little bit there where there's not the protective sheath. I might just wrap them, but otherwise the injector harness is ready to go back in. The fuel rail is all set up, so we've got the -8 to -6 fittings all installed on the fuel rail. Fuel rail's ready to go in, so we've got the spacers for the rail and the mounting hardware laid out accordingly. Injector harness is all ready to go in. Alright, so we've got the Turbo Smart fuel reg now, and I've swapped all the fittings over from my old fuel reg. Not the Tomei, I had another reg around. Basically because this Turbo Smart fuel pressure reg, it actually didn't come with the fittings, which was a bit of a bummer. So I actually had to just swap some fittings that I had, the -6 fittings, and swap them over onto this one, but it worked out okay. I've got the fuel pressure gauge all connected up now, so that's ready to just bolt on now, and the lines are good to be connected. So let's get to installing the fuel rail finally, and then we'll put all this back together. So what I've done here, I've actually labelled each injector. I've labelled each injector because each injector comes with a code, and I'm just not too sure what those codes mean exactly. So I'm going to take the boxes to my tuner so that he knows exactly which one's which, and if those codes mean anything to him, they'll come in handy. I'm going to install these injectors as per the numbers that I've numbered them, 1 through to 4. Now we need to install the injectors onto the fuel rail. It's just a matter of pretty much slotting them in with some fresh engine oil and then mounting them with the spacers. Alright, so this is exactly how the rail's going to sit. So we're going to install these lovely beautiful injectors now. Mount them to the rail and fit the rail. Alright, number 1, injector. Alright, a little bit of engine oil, nice fresh oil just on that O-ring. And then same on the other side where the other O-ring is. So guys, I'm only going to show you one of these because if I was to show you all of them, it's just going to take far too long, and I want to get these injectors fitted. Okay, so what we are best to do, I think, is actually fit the injectors to the intake manifold first up, and then we can just push the injector rail on over these O-rings here. Okay, number 1 injector. So I got the engine oil on that injector, and you just want to carefully push it in, just like so, easy as, and do the same for the others. This is where we fit that nicely modified harness that I just showed you guys when we did that, and this is where we remember where pretty much our connectors are going to connect to on the injectors. So the connectors connect on top, I believe, just from looking at this. I mean, it is a different setup, but just trying to keep it how it was originally routed with the harness. Okay, so there we have it. The injectors are all in, just sitting in there now. Now it is time to fit that rail, man. I'm so keen. I want to get this done. We've got dyno tune coming up in a couple of days, so time is of the essence. Okay, so we've got the injectors just sitting in the adapters for the intake manifold. They're all sitting in nicely now. We've got the harness roughly in place. Now I have the fuel rail here, and pretty much we're going to just carefully fit it, and yeah guys, we're getting there. We've got the mounting hardware to go in with the rail, and then once we've placed it, we can bolt it down and then connect up the harness. So what we have are these spacers, and they are different lengths because of the differences in height, and they are a little bit fiddly to install. So now you want to carefully push that fuel rail on, giving it a little bit of a wiggle as you progressively just push that rail onto the injectors. And now, when you're confident that it's all in, that the O-rings are seated in the fuel rail, you can then fit your little spaces. Being careful not to drop them, because if you drop them, you're going to have a hard time trying to find them. Believe me. So I'm just slotting that one in there. I fit the bolt with the spring washer. What I have here is just a little bit of anti-seize for the bolts. And then this long washer goes on the far right hand side. Now I'm going to torque these bolts up to pretty much whatever the bolts that originally went in there. I'm going to torque them up to whatever that setting is, just referring to the service manual. So I've set the torque wrench, final torque to spec. And there we go. Fuel rail's nicely torqued now. Now we have to connect up the harness. I'm going to route that through nicely. I'll go under the rail and then up over and connect it in. Each connector in. Just sort of like that. So I decided to take the path of least resistance and just decided to route the injector wiring harness over instead of under and over. So it's not going to be placed under any stress. It's just sitting all nicely there. And I just zip tied it to the rail and that'll do just fine. Next we need to make up the AN6 lines with some push lock E85 hose that I've got. So I've just got 2 right angles on the rail. Might be a bit of a squeeze with that one. Okay, so the fuel rail is all mounted up now and I've got the lines connected up. I've got some extra clamps on these push lock connectors here, and so that definitely no way they're going to come loose. Teflon tape for the orb fittings, the orb to AN6. Alright guys, so the fuel rail is all bolted up nicely. Connectors are all in, and yeah guys, time to put the intake manifold back on. Brand new fuel rail is all fitted. We've got the fuel lines connected up now to either side of the fuel rail, to the reg. You see the fuel reg, the FPR 1200 Turbo Smart. Unfortunately the gauge is on this side. We'll look at relocating that in future though, just to make it easy to read, but you can still read it. I've just bent it up a little bit. And guys, yeah, now it's time to put that new manifold gasket on, and we can bolt the manifold back on. So we've got this line here. Basically this is the feed to the fuel rail from the left hand side. It goes along. So we've got the new connection on the end of the rail. Got the extra hose clamp on there. They're push lock fittings, but the extra clamp just ensures reliability really. And yeah, goes to the fuel reg there. And the gauge here, we're going to have to look at doing something about that because it's going to be a bit hard to read. So we've got the nice new gasket all ready to go, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to just coat the surfaces with Hylamar of the intake manifold. You don't really need to do this, but this is just sort of going the extra mile I guess for the best possible sealing. The new gasket should be fine, but yeah, like I said, I like to go the extra. So just a little bit on that face, and then over here on the mating faces, the nice new gasket time, freshy. Just go something like that. It's got a nice new gasket in place there. Just coated the new gasket in a bit of Hylamar, just a light coat on both sides, just gives it some extra sealing. We've got the nice new gasket on, ready for the manifold.